alchemy, which is one of the most ancient forms of, let's say, speculative and practical sciences. But before I jump to alchemy, I'm gonna talk a bit about algebra. So algebra is originally an Arabic word. It comes from the word al-jabr. And the other day I was trying to Google what is the Arabic translation of the 4 elements, and it gave me, so it's anasir, is usually considered to mean element. But if you want to talk about the 4 elements, I found a very interesting term, which was anasir jabriya, which took me to the word al-jabr. Okay, in English it's al-jabr. Algebra coined by Khwarizmi, who was an Islamic physicist, mathematician, poet, and mystic as well. They all did the same things. But Khwarizmi was able to devise something that would later be called algebra in the West, which is a way of understanding constants in the world. And I'm saying constants because of the word al-jabr in Arabic, which kind of means the things that are. Jabr links to a word, one of the names of God, which is a jabbar, which is often understood as the mighty. It can also be seen as the forceful and stuff like that, but there's something about jabr in Arabic. You say tujbar hadan, like when you force someone to do this. So there's something related to force also. I asked a very old friend of mine, a school friend, to give me his definition of algebra. He's a physicist. And he was like, it's the study of the things that are constant and they're other in a sense. Upon Googling it, I was like, it all has to do with X. Remember shit that I hated in school so much, but X is basically a value that we're trying to figure out. Okay, we don't know what the value is. So algebra is the way of understanding the value of something that is unvalued. So it looks at the constant and the other. Inside any formula, you're always trying to look for the value of X. So you're looking for something, you're trying to identify or pinpoint or fix or fixate something which is not of a lot of value, okay? So in a sense, al-jabr can be seen as how you study the things and their other, okay? The thing and what is not the thing. And keep this in mind because it has to do with the philosophy of alchemy. And from here we go to alchemy, which comes from the word chimia, I think, chimia or alchemia. I think the Arabs included the al, but chimia is basically Greek. It was later adapted to alchemia or alchemia, which means chemistry, basically. So as we all know, alchemy is the ancient form of chemistry. Chemistry came about in the modern era, when superstitions were put aside and things were tried to be made more objective and rigorous and empirical, basically. Okay? But alchemy as an ancient form was something not so different if you think about it. So in a sense, alchemy has to do, why I started with algebra. If algebra was the constant, alchemy is working with constants to create transformation. To make this more simple, alchemists in every fiction you've read have had 2 goals. One is to turn any metal to gold. And the second was to create the elixir of life. Elixir of life, i.e. immortality. Okay, so these 2 goals essentially have to deal with transformation, okay? Because you're turning any metal into gold, you're transforming the jabr of a substance, the chemical or elemental compound of something to become something else. And also you're trying to look for, you're trying to change mortality into immortality in a sense. So you understand loosely how this and algebra can form the basis of understanding everything in the world. And if you think about it today, even if we have physics, chemistry, and mathematics, somehow chemistry and physics rely a lot on mathematics and cannot exist without it, and vice versa. So just to say that in the ancient world, all types of studies were seen way different than today, but somehow there is still something that is continuous throughout history. That today I want to talk about and tell you how it links to story and how it links to our everyday lives through this screen that we hold in our hands all the time, through media, okay? So because alchemists had this goal, they were often looking for something which is known in popular culture as philosopher's stone. And here comes the whole speculative aspect of alchemy throughout history. I encourage everyone to do their own research. I'm just giving you frameworks to kind of prove a point, but alchemy is a huge and very ancient science. They say it comes from the days of the pharaohs, okay? And they say the first text is attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. Because all of these stuff you can find online. So it's a very ancient science, and it's so huge and vast, and many cultures in the world have looked in it because it is the science of transformation. It is the method, let's say, that makes an ordinary human being, through practice and exploration and experimentation, understand how the world works. Why? Could be out of curiosity, could be to understand, or could be to control, because you control the power of transformation, taking something from one state to another. Because alchemy deals with transformation, you can understand how this art or this practice can lead to a lot of danger, because essentially something about controlling transformations is very powerful, right? With transformation, I want you to take it in its most metaphorical and abstract and broad sense. When you make someone laugh, that's a transformation, okay? So that's why usually magicians are associated with alchemists, with also with charlatans, with tricksters, with people who can manipulate something about reality and have a certain control over you, okay? So this is the general gist of alchemy. It was a bunch of people who were very curious and highly motivated, who wanted to transform the elements. They wanted to be able to have riches over the material world, which is what this symbolizes, turning any metal into gold or refining metals into another state. In most cases and most alchemical texts, they give you kind of hacks or recipes to make metals look like gold, but never actually turning them into gold. There's no record of it actually working. And the elixir of life, which is basically to control life, to be able to extend it, to be able to, make people live more. So as you can see, these two things eventually, through modern chemistry, were kind of put aside. So with turning any metal into gold, there's a process that was eventually invented called electrolyting or electroplating, sorry, where you can put something like something gold and any metal, and like through an electric iode process, I don't know, we learned it in school, the gold kind of goes and deposits a layer around this. It's called gold plating, okay? Through modern science, technically being able to turn anything into gold, in a way, or metaphorically, let's say. Now, what about the elixir of life? So in 2019, I went to Turin, a city in the northern Italy, because I heard that this city was known for white and black magic. Anyway, happens in that city, there's a very ancient and huge, it's the biggest dome in the city. It's like, it was a synagogue, a Jewish temple, one of the oldest ones, which was eventually transformed into a cinema museum. And in the basement, where they show you the labs where they used to develop the first films, film in Italy was actually started in Torino, then later moved to Rome. All the Torinos have a bit of spite about this because they kind of invented it. Torino is also known as a city with many hidden alchemical labs. So on a high journey to the museum, looking at the labs, I kind of deduced that cinema, in a sense, is the elixir of life, because the moving image makes you live forever. So through two different chemical processes in the modern world, this was achieved, and everyone put a close on alchemy. Okay? But it doesn't end there. Because today, more than ever, alchemical thought, alchemical study has resurfaced.